Welcome to this episode of our program, Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing an important debate. Today we'll be speaking about this presidential initiative, this nationwide centered initiative with its great projects that have succeeded, or that has succeeded in bringing hope to all Egyptians, with promising projects in different sectors aiming at developing services and the alleviating the living conditions of people at the countryside. The Decent Life is an initiative that was endorsed by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in 2019 with the main objective, which is improving the quality of life in urban and rural communities, and is an unprecedented initiative to develop the Egyptian countryside. And that was very much appreciated by the United Nations as a project of this century for Egypt. The initiative witnesses the aggregation of the work efforts of all the initiatives that are 100 million health initiatives, Solidarity and Dignity, Egypt Without Debts, and others. These initiatives, which the President implemented, are combined and applied simultaneously in all the targeted villages, and the pace of their implementation is very much accelerated with directives from the President, and the leadership is following out the implementation process itself. We'll be speaking about that tonight, and before we delve into our discussion, first let's have a quick look on the top story of the day. And the Youth Coordination of Parties and Politicians published the new year's harvest of their achievements of its deputies in the Houses of Parliament and the House of Parliament and the Senate on its social media page. In its report, which dealt with the deputies' achievements during the year, the coordination said more than 4 years ago, the coordination of youth parties and politicians promised a new concept of politics and provided the country with young cadres in all political and executive fields. In terms of representation, 32 members of the coordination of youth and parties and politicians won the honor of representing the people as members of the House of Representatives, of whom 28 were elected and 4 appointed. 10 of them were representative in main committees. The coordination's deputies won 5 important parliamentary positions, as well as 12 international participations in the parliamentary delegations. 16 members of the coordination gained seats in the Senate, 6 by election and 10 by appointment, and 8 of them were representatives in the Senate committees. The deputies won positions in the General Committee and the Registration Committee, as well as 5 international participations within the parliamentary delegation. In terms of their performance at the level of the House of Representatives, the total number of sessions attended by the coordination deputies amounted to 1,285 plenary sessions and 1,702 committee sessions. 121 proposals were submitted, 23 urgent statements, 18 bills, 22 amendments to the articles of draft laws, and 5,580 service requests were submitted to 62 government agencies. 1,037 requests were approved, and the rest of the requests are being followed up. Coordination deputies held 180 meetings with officials. They attended 162 specialized training hours, in addition to attending 662 official visits and 443 events and seminars. They also conducted 983 field visits and participated in 3,561 media appearances and press releases. At the level of Senate, the total number of sessions reached 560 plenary sessions and 669 committee sessions. Over the course of these sessions, they delivered 76 speeches, submitted 102 proposals and 2 requests for general discussion, and held 147 meetings with officials, in addition to their attendance of 90 specialized training hours and 691 requests that were submitted to 53 government agencies, and 390 of them have already been approved. The rest of the applications were being followed up. They conducted 133 field visits, attended 194 official visits and 286 events and seminars, and participated in 568 media appearances and press statements. The coordination concluded. The youth parties and politicians' coordination estimated that it would be a link and an important number in the political decision-making equation in Egypt, so as to evidently proves that youth are the hope that work and that work is not counted in minutes and hours, but is calculated with the effort exerted and achievements. Right, welcome back. And before we delve into our discussion, let me first have this report. And Prime Minister says Decent Life project considered as the 21st century project. Let's watch.
Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli asserted the government's keenness on continuing the implementation of the Decent Life project despite all challenges, as it is considered as the 21st century project. In a statement during his visit to Alexandria Governorate to follow up on the projects underway at the port, the Premier said he started the tour by visiting Abu Sir village of Borg Al Arab district to inspect the Decent Life project. He also noted that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is always directing the government to follow up the implementation of the presidential initiative. The Premier was accompanied by Minister of Finance Mohammed Mait, Minister of Transport Kamil al-Wazir, Alexandria Governor Mohammed al-Sharif, as well as a galaxy of officials. The Haya Karima project seeks to unify the efforts of all the state's institutions in coordination with the civil society, the private sector companies, and the development partners inside and outside Egypt in the sustainable development field. The project also aims, through eliminating multi-dimensional poverty, to alleviate the burden shouldered by the citizens, especially the neediest families, in the targeted villages and centers totaling 4,658 villages, with total investments estimated at £700 billion. This contributes to improving the life of more than half of the Egyptian population through setting an integrated developmental roadmap, which its goals and axes are consistent with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations.
Right, welcome back. And before I start with my discussion, let me first welcome our distinguished guest, Mrs. Sahar Damaty, banking and economic expert. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, thank you. It's my pleasure.
The pleasure is all ours. Decent Life. Decent Life, this nationwide project, huge or mega project, the biggest that was carried out up to this minute under the directives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the supervision of himself. And up till this minute, the President has given his directives in order for the project to continue and extend. How do you view the President's insistence for such a project to go on, despite all the challenges and the burden the country is, not just Egypt, but all the whole world is going through?
Yeah, actually, I see it from my point of view. It was the social justice was one of the main objectives of the two revolutions that took place between 2011 and actually 2013. Hence, both the slums to start with and then decent life is the implementation of the requests by peoples of Egypt for social justice. I see it this way. It cannot be any better. If you add to it, of course, the medical conditions that the country had to deal with and other matters, I think this would cover this area completely. As for decent life, it's an incredible project. I personally admire this project so much. I never thought I'd live to see the villagers in Egypt living a decent life. And by decent life here, we're talking about 4,500 or 4,600 villages across the country, a little bit more than that, as a matter of fact, and to be covered in terms of electricity, sewage, water, proper housing, good schools, in addition to health, hospitals, medical treatments. All of this is part of decent life. We're talking about a mega project costing approximately 700 billion, so this is $750 billion Egyptian pounds, and it may go further up. However, it's definitely worth it, and to be executed over 3 phases. First phase, 1,500 villages, and then the second phase and third phase accordingly, and over 5 years' time. Having said that, I believe that we have finished with the first phase right now. And also I would like to add that this initiative was highly commended by the United Nations, by all the international organizations, because what you're doing here is that you're accomplishing a number of objectives, mainly alleviating poverty. So that was core. And by alleviating poverty, we are tackling here approximately out of 102 population living in Egypt, we're talking around 58%, 60% of the population under this initiative. So it is, and all of them are actually below poverty levels. So by doing this, you're alleviating the poverty, you're offering them a decent and healthy life and opportunity in order to survive through SMEs, or not necessarily SMEs, also a micro level small business, by micro small business. So actually you are offering them an opportunity to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition, we cannot forget about the fact that you are preparing a very good foundation for improving the educational level among this huge poverty areas, and also making sure that they will survive in a healthy manner. I believe it is a fantastic initiative.
But it is. And as you respectively said, it works on several dimensions. Okay, the economic one, but also the social. And if we take it from, I don't know where to take it from, the social or the economic one, but let me here say that it is part and parcel of the sustainable development overall vision of the country.
Yeah.
If we speak from that dimension, then we have to speak also about how life had become decent since putting such a vision into action.
Okay, most of these villages, if not all of them, did not have proper electricity, proper housing. They didn't have as a matter of fact, water, clean water in their houses. Now they do have clean water in their houses. They didn't have sewage systems, and now the sewage, I think, which is costing, it's one of the bulk, in addition to the water treatment, I think those are costing the highest budget when it comes to the implementation of decent life. So by providing them with a proper house, with human life, with water, clean water, electricity, sewage,
the basic demands.
The basic human being demands.
Yes, indeed.
And we're talking here approximately 60% of 100 million or 200 million Egyptians living in Egypt.
60 million people.
So we're talking about 60 million people.
Indeed.
That's incredible. And having finalized phase one, which is, I would say, it's around 1,500. So you
one third exactly from of the 1/3 of the
of the total initiative.
Yes.
It's a 5-year project anyway. So I think this has been finalized early 2022, and they are proceeding with the second phase and third phase. So I don't believe, for me, I've never thought that this could happen. But after the implementation or the start of the implementation of the initiative and seeing to what extent those houses had turned to be proper housing for the people, notwithstanding the fact that there is infrastructure, roads, to facilitate transportation between the villages. So all of this is, from my point of view, it's a miracle happening in Egypt. It's a miracle, by all means.
By the way, it's not a miracle that is dreams. They are on the ground. They exist. This change in the life exists in.
But that's what I call it. At the time, we were 10 years ago. We never thought it would happen, but now that is happening.
What I meant here, what I really meant here, it's not just that we are speaking words, but they truly exist.
Yes.
And every day we see the dimension growing on Earth.
Of course,
indeed.
Of course.
Another aim was to achieve development, integrated, to become an important and vital way of supporting the national economy or the national industry, while at the same time finding job opportunities for people working within this big projects. How do you view that?
From the economic point of view, as I said, this is also lead to creating employment opportunities to the people living in the villages. Of course, there are a lot of farmers, mainly they are farmers because they are living in rural areas, but also you are creating the whole community, the new community. In the banking sector, for instance, they open what we call mini branches in those villages in order to provide them with good ideas about banking services, provide them with finance in order to start their micro business. That's one dimension. The NGOs is a very strong instrument in order to assess the needs of the communities, the village communities, and also to be able to provide them with not only with finance for their project, but also some kind of training. Thirdly, you are trying to build, to combat actually illiteracy, because illiteracy is a big problem.
Indeed.
But now, as a matter of fact, I believe that by the end and the finalization of the decent life, level of illiteracy will decrease substantially in the country. Creation of jobs through micro and SMEs is another thing. Hence, this would lead to providing employment opportunities, decrease in the level of unemployment in the country substantially among low-income brackets primarily. So I think from an economic point of view, it is a fantastic initiative for job creation and poverty alleviation.
Indeed.
And at the end of this would lead to increase in the GDP of the country.
This is how it is really contributing to the our economy. Before we continue on, we spoke about how evident such projects is. Before we continue on with our discussion, let's see evidence in pictures and video and the implementation of this project on the ground and the developments that occurred just in one governorate, Giza Governorate. Let's watch.
Giza Governorate is living its best era with the first phase of the Decent Life Initiative, which was a rescue locomotive that changed the lives of more than 1 million citizens in 42 villages in Al-Saf and Atfih centers. Nearly 1,136 development projects were extended to all sectors of infrastructure and major services in the most important areas, including housing, health, education, and transportation, with investments exceeding 10 billion Egyptian pounds. With the handing over of the projects of the first phase of the initiative's work, Giza Governorate is preparing to start the second phase with 3 new centers: Manshit, Al-Qanatir, Al-Ayyat, and Al-Badrashin, which include 83 villages with a total of 1.5 million citizens benefiting. The development projects expected to take place include implementation of drinking water, sanitation, electricity and gas projects, health and educational facilities, and youth centers. The most prominent features of the first phase of the initiative in the villages of Giza Governorate are developing the infrastructure of the water sector by changing the lines, replacing and renewing the old ones. The number of projects in the education sector reached 80, including the establishment of new schools, the replacement, renewal, and expansion of schools to accommodate students' densities. Implementation of 36 projects in the health sector to raise the efficiency of hospitals and establish health centers and units at the highest level to provide adequate health care to citizens. Atfih Center is witnessing the construction of 6 joint service complexes, a veterinary complex, and a technology center to provide all citizens' needs. The implementation rate in the Family Medicine Center and the Agricultural Services Complex has reached 90% in the village of Al-Qadaya, which is affiliated with the Atfih Center, completing the implementation of the entire governmental services complexes. Completion of nearly 90% of the work of the sewage treatment plant in Al-Brombil, which depends on the triple treatment with a capacity of 15,000 cubic meters and serves 4 main villages in Giza Governorate, representing approximately 150,000 people. Construction of 2 main treatment plants in Kafr al-Waslin and sewage lift in the domes. Establishment of a health unit in Kafr al-Waslin. Completing 99% of educational services projects and exceeding 85% of infrastructure projects implementation rates, including sewage, drinking water, gas, electricity, and government complexes, for 85% in the villages of Atfih Center. Completion of 90% of the sewage treatment plant works in the village of Musa Mosque, which will work with triple treatment with a capacity of 22,000 cubic meters per day and will serve 5 villages in Atfih. Establishing the government services complex, which includes postal services, social solidarity, catering, the civil registry, the technology center, and the local unit in the SAF center. the delivery of 99% of most of the projects of youth centers, educational services, schools, government, and agricultural complexes in Al-Saf and the Atfih centers, and work is underway to complete the implementation of road, natural gas, and communications projects.
Welcome back. And back to you, Dr. Sahar. And we were speaking about the decent life, economic, social. Now we're speaking about the initiative from the perspective of expanding the percentage of women participation in the labor market and the changing of the Egyptian families' livelihood from the social dimensions.
Okay, let's start with the first part of your question regarding women participation. I believe that since the president took office back in 2013, there has been a lot of changes regarding women. We've seen a lot of women in the ministries and the Justice Department and the Police Department and the Army, everywhere. So I think there is substantial contribution of women right now in places we never thought would happen previously. That's one side. From the other side, there is a law issued by the Financial Supervisory Authority. It's not a law, it's a regulation ordering all the companies which are registered in the stock market that they must have within their board of directors women as a non-executive. So this is another strong initiative. Thirdly, there has been a lot of funds pouring from different international organizations to the banks in order to provide finance for women who are conducting their personal business, companies, and so on. And this has been going on for a number of years now. So this is what I'm talking about is at the level of the country. When it comes to the initiative back to decent life, I think through the microfinance, the NGOs giving microfinance in different villages in the country, there has been a lot of funds directed for women to enable them to secure a job and enable them to start their business. Also when it comes to SMEs in general, 400 billion have been provided to different SMEs in the countries across the last few years, and a large number or a big number of this of the 400 billion have been given also to women in business. So the encouragement that I see on the level of the government, whereby you have a number of women there, at the level of the not only the ministries, as I told you, the Justice Department, everywhere. So it has never been as such. We've never witnessed so many women working in very important positions, leading organizations, leading private business, even in the public sector, increasing and to that extent. And in the People's Assembly, by the way.
President Sisi has repeatedly linked the launch of the Decent Life Initiative to the birth of the new republic.
To the birth
of the new republic.
Yes.
And he had always repeated that. Now, the Decent Life Initiative sees the integration of all segments of the society plus officials. I mean, here all the ministries, institutions, private sector, NGOs, world bodies. I mean, it's for the first time combining all that together.
It had to be like this, of course. It couldn't have been otherwise. When it comes to construction and when this is very Of course, most of the contractors are working in this field. When it comes to water, you have Ministry of Water, Ministry of Electricity, Ministry of Social Solidarity, Ministry of Sewage, of course, Ministry of Health, as well as a very important sector, which is insurance. For the first time, we're going to see health insurance provided for the different people living in the villages. So this is also a new dimension that did not exist before. Ministry of Health, as you mentioned, of course. So all the ministries, we're talking about sustainable life for 60 million human beings, providing them with proper human being, proper life for them to survive. Hence, this needed, of course, the coordination of all the ministries together, the supervisory role, very important, of the Prime Minister, and of course, His Excellency the President. So I see this as quite normal, but also we should look at it also from other dimensions, is that the initiative was praised by the biggest international organizations in the world. So we're talking here the United Nations, UNESCO, World Bank.
All the UN bodies.
All the UN, the World Bank, everybody wants to pitch in.
Indeed.
Having said that, I would like to add one last dimension, is that among the contributors also was partially the private sector, whether in terms of money or in terms of contribution in the development phase itself. So by saying that, you have a complete circle of all the bodies for the finalization of this initiative.
I have one last question, and I have 1 minute left for me.
1 minute.
Yes. This is what they are giving me. So you said respectively the UN is as one of the best social programs, or described this project as one of the best social programs worldwide to achieve sustainable development goal. How do you view the contribution of the UN and the world bodies towards that, or what they said the projects, the best project for such an aim?
I believe that the UN, or all of these big bodies who work for development across the world, have praised the initiative substantially, and they understand the magnitude of the work, not only financially in terms of finalizing basic needs of life for the human beings to live a decent life, and that's one of the objectives of the United Nations.
The contribution? How far, or is that what we expect from such praising, the contribution we've seen?
No, their contribution was, they are there to provide ideas, to provide directions whenever they are needed, but Egypt have received the highest praise ever from this organization worldwide.
So let me say here, it's all Egyptian, 100% pure Egyptian.
Definitely.
Dr. Sahar Damaty, economic and banking expert, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. And dear viewers, many thanks for watching. Next debate will be on Sunday, so until then, enjoy your weekend and good night.